Welcome to Explore, Explain, Highlights. In this highlights package, we'll be looking at Season 1, Episode 2, with our guest, Dr Cath Sleeman, looking at the project Making Sense of Skills, a UK skills taxonomy.
Now, one of the things that always strikes me about your work, Kath, perhaps your signature piece, is how cleverly, how astutely, how sometimes audaciously you use the title space.
Oh, that's very
And,
nice.
and I've
Thank you.
spoken in the past in some of my little viz pieces about the kind of integration of those to also show a chart within them as well. Um, the feature that we see at the top of the page is a very kind of artistic asset, an abstract asset. It's not a literal chart, it's not data driven, but what is that? And why did you pick to use that as your centerpiece starting point?
Yeah, so I looked at lots of different possible charts online, and I guess the one thing I was really certain about was that I wanted to show the taxonomy fully expanded. So lots of the examples I found online were whereby it was more interactive and the taxonomy was collapsed, and then you would click on each node and it would expand the next node and show you a bit more of the taxonomy. But personally, I found that kind of frustrating that you would have to click so many times to just see the whole thing. So I was certain from the start that I wanted to show the whole thing fully expanded. I did consider then something like a circular dendrogram, just because they look quite nice. But sometimes it is nice to have something that looks a bit different and is kind of you think will catch someone's eye, but it just wasn't practical because I really don't like it when you're having to kind of tilt your head 180 degrees or whatever to try and read a label. Um, so that really ruled out that. And as you can see, lots of the labels are quite long. And so if I had have used the circular dendrogram, the actual center of the dendrogram where you see the structure, it just would have been so small, it would have been very hard to see anything. So that's where I kind of how I kind of came to the choices that I did. Um, I wanted to use, I guess, curves and to curve the text just to reflect because in kind of Nesta's own design, we have kind of those similar shapes. I also wanted the taxonomy not just to be um, just a taxonomy. So I wanted people to be able to get something else from it as well. So that's why I kind of tacked on a bar chart at the end so that you could see an indication of which skill groups are mentioned most frequently within job adverts. And then in terms of the other kind of features, um, like I mentioned before, attaching mouse over events to these little kind of invisible rectangles that sit behind each part of the taxonomy, um, so that yeah, when you hover over one part, all the labels come up. And then I wanted to also, there's a little search box at the top so you can type in your job title and it will show you the skills that are most closely associated with your job and it will grey out the skills that aren't required. Right, so the style guide is relatively new actually because our website was redone in, I think it was early 2018. So with that work came a style guide. And to be honest, I find it really helpful because it takes away certain choices, like what font you're going to use or the line spacing. And then it reduces some of your other choices, like color. But you've still got a lot of flexibility. And I guess what I'm trying to do is make sure that my work emulates the kind of feel of the Nesta website. So if you go to our site, you can see that there's a lot of white space, but there's highlights of very bright colours, and it's got quite overall. I think it's got quite an energetic feel to it. So I wanted to try and copy that, and so I've tried to do the same. Um, I think the only constraints I face in terms of colours, our primary palette, there are quite a few colours that are very close to each other. So we have a pink, an orange, a yellow, and there are no blues or greens in the primary palette. So we do though have a secondary palette, and so I drew on some colours from that. And then I think I may have darkened a couple of the colours slightly so that white text could sit on top of those colours.
Yeah, I mean that's interesting. I mean, we'll come on to some of the colour choices later, and especially about this very prominent heading. Is stripping back the chart apparatus to not include grid lines, to not include axis labels, axis tick marks, all the things that you see by default in Excel charts.
Yes.
And you've reduced it down to just simply low up to high. Is that something that's your own personal style that you like to do, or was it just a sense that we don't care about reading off exact values, it's about the sense of shape?
I think it's a combination of the two. I do like quite a kind of minimalistic style, but I also didn't want people to get too hung up on individual values, because we know there's so much uncertainty around these numbers. So it was to give a sense of here's a type of statistics that we could show with this data. But don't expect that if you have the skill, you will be paid exactly the salary.
That's right. I think that's really important, again, about the uncertainty that you mentioned there, because sometimes when we portray things in very precise detail forms, it kind of implies precision
Yes.
where it does not exist. So I think this idea of just get a sense of the data is absolutely the right level to pitch it at.
Yeah, it's a really important point because, at least in this case and in quite a few of my other data visualizations, the most important uncertainty is a type of uncertainty that can't be measured. So then what becomes really important is not showing it in the chart because you can't, but discussing it in the text and critically discussing it in a way that doesn't presuppose any knowledge of machine learning or data science. So when we discuss the uncertainty, I'm not talking about individual parameter choices that no one has ever heard of. I'm talking about it in terms that everyone would understand and could kind of sympathize with.
Absolutely.
I think it's just a fantastic puzzle almost, isn't it? You've got your set of pre-attentive features and you've got your set of data insights, and it's a matter of matching one up with the other. And that's just a really interesting puzzle to have to kind of contend with.
Thank you for joining us for this Explore Explain highlights episode. As always, the full episode is available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. We hope to see you again soon on another episode of Explore Explain.